Thank you so much. I'm for sure the least person with experience in this room about Panoramax, but I would like to talk to you about some kind of vision, in the sense that these are the number of Panoramax that just I took 1 hour ago. So we reached 70 million photos, a lot of kilometers covered. We see that we are increasing, continuously increasing. The number of user increase this sum. Obviously, in summer, people are more free, so they upload more images. They go outside more. There is more images. So we reach 400 this summer. I believe it's very good after 2 years. I cannot spend time on that. You have talked previously on how it works, Panoramax. We have different instances, some dedicated for countries, some dedicated for kind of project. We have map complete. We have one for Belgium, one for Taiwan, one for Wales. The biggest one, the first one from France, and for test outside. And so these are some other numbers. We can see that half and half is between the OSM France, and the other half is the EGN, that is the governmental France institute. Then what we could see, this is I find this graph. Maybe it's, if you check the year, after 2 years, we are this app, and we will discover later what is the point. This app reach around 1,000. This is Mapillary. It was Mapillary after 2 years that they have been published, they've been discovered. So my point was, okay, we are here. We are half of the way that Mapillary was. And Mapillary not needs to start a community. We have as OpenStreetMap community that believe in Panoramax as an open way to share images. We don't need to build a community. We are already a community. So my point was that, okay, for sure the instances have a very big value, but it's not that we are going to miss something. So my goal of this talk is we should start to get in contact, to have a contact, like I suggest, since we are at State of the Map Europe, to an European level, get in contact between local chapter, between group of people in different areas, and try to put together what we could have to try to have, for example, we just talked before with Christian, I can have, as Wikimedia Italia is not an issue, find money, but I can have an issue for having people that do that. So there could be, if we stay together, we could work together, we create a table where we can talk and put in place what we could have, and together maybe be able to find this gap that after 2 years we are missing, because we are missing half of the people. So that's all, just 1 point. Thank you.
Hello everyone, so I'm Martin from Cycle Streets. We're best known for doing bike routing. In fact, we're one of the earliest users of it. And although I can't actually cycle at the moment myself, please do take away these because I don't want to take them back with me. So I'm going to give a slightly provocative talk on, is the AOSM data model creaking? And it kind of relates to something that we've been talking about with pedestrian routing and other stuff. So the fundamental problem that I think a lot of issues that we're seeing in OpenStreetMap is that we're trying to represent areas, and with spaces, as lines. And the world isn't actually lines, it's spaces. And there's a lot of compromises that arise from this. I'll just stop my... So here we've got a tunnel in Amsterdam going under the railway, and you can see that we've got two distinct flows. We've got pedestrians and cycles. But how do we represent this in OpenStreetMap? Well, we've got two tunnels because basically that's the only way we can do it. And as a result, we don't have this conceptual sense of what this place actually is. Here is another sort of interesting example of how we might represent the real world. It's a road in Cambridge with a cycleway on both sides. There's also a pavement on both sides, and on the left pavement there's a contraflow. So how will we represent this in OpenStreetMap? Well, here's the original model in 2008. We basically draw a line, we say it's a primary road, and we say cycleway's track. Now, that's kind of okay. It'll give reasonably good cycle routing, but it doesn't really model what we've actually got on the ground. So this is the separate paths approach. There's obviously a big debate going on in the OpenStreetMap community. Do you separately map pavements, for example? But this is the separate path approach, and you can see we can then give each of the particular flows that we've got lots of detail. So at the moment we're modelling the one highlighted in red, which is the second on the left. We can see it's a cycleway track. It's not allowed to be used by footpath people, part of the local cycle network. It's lit and so on. We can put widths and so on. And with this, cycle routers and analysis tools can do a lot because they've actually got the data for this. But it does create problems. It creates this sort of issue where basically we can't cross the road because there's not actually a sort of cycleway in the middle of the road that people cross over. So there are lots of these sort of compromises, and I'll be showing a few more. So here's one of the problems. This is First Avenue in New York, and you can see because people have actually mapped out the different flows, and they've correctly added the names, like First Avenue, because a pedestrian would like to know what street they're on. We've now got 5 First Avenues cartographically. So the routing is working well here, but the cartography not so well. And the two are a little bit in conflict, I think. So one approach we could take is to go back to the unified street approach and try and put all of the kind of attributes of this road onto a single line. And here's what I came up with. So things like access lanes equals no, 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 yes, no, 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 bicycle lanes, and so on. And in fact, even as an OSM expert, I actually made a mistake. I don't know if anyone can spot it. You probably can't see it. But actually, I made a mistake because lanes, it doesn't include cycle lanes. It's only motor vehicle lanes, but it does include bus lanes. But you can see this kind of approach is basically completely unusable. No one is going to do this. It does actually represent the real world if I fix the problem, but it's basically not usable. It's hard to edit. It's very easy to break. So you can see both models basically have problems if we want to model the real world and have things like nice cartography. There are also issues that do arise with the separate paths approach. I should say I'm a strong separate paths approach advocate. I don't believe, I think we should do things separately. But you do end up things like this, like where actually is the pedestrian intended to be? Are they between or are they on this side? So in theory, the road should have sidewalk left equals no, and the cycle lane should have it. But there's lots of difficulties that arise with these things. People get it wrong. There's also the issue that because we need to represent our network topology in routability terms, you can see we're going through a particular point of the network, we can't really model the turn that a real user makes, sort of like turning right, for example. So that if they're coming from the bottom, they might sort of go up that main bit, then they might sort of do a harsh right and then left. Really what they're actually doing is just that. So there's lots of these sort of issues that arise. And we also so in general, the problem we have, I think, is that we don't really have a concept of a junction. A thing that a user sees, I'm going into the junction and I'm turning right. Instead, we've got lots of lines that say do this, do that, turn left, and so on. And you can see here in Amsterdam, we've got a problem where basically we're actually making a right turn, but it kind of feels like from a line perspective, we're going straight on. There's never actually a turn. So, how do we tell the cyclist to turn right? We've got things like this where we've got loads of traffic, we've got traffic lights, but how do we know they're actually part of the junction or are they a separate bit further up? Lots of these sort of issues. I'm going to skip the one. And so with traffic lights, we can do things like we model them there, but again, does a human really perceive these traffic lights there, or they think of it as where the junction crosses? So did you see the sort of issues that we have? So I think we have this problem of no concept of a junction, and also no concept of a unified street. So we have this issue, for example, of pedestrian, and you can see it's kind of doubling around. So pedestrians, well, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should kind of have all the places they cross over. But actually, pedestrians don't work like that. They work like this. They're Pythagoreans. They kind of cut corners and so on. And clearly, this is also very silly and nonsensical. So I think what we need is this. And I'd like to see this more often. I think we need a concept of a junction, something that basically surrounds all the relevant features, unifying them, which we can then use for people to post-process them in some way. And I've tried this, for example, in East Road in Cambridge. It's just basically area equals yes, junction equals yes, and indeed we end up with something like this, which kind of actually unifies all the features. And you can imagine a routing engine could say, I'm going in that way, turn right, if you're cycling, things like that. And it also means we could have things like pedestrians crossing from one side of the road, even though there's not a formal link. And similarly, we could do the same with a street, surrounding all the bits of a street together. So anyway, that's my talk. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tim Foster. I'm a long-term contributor and sometimes map maker. And I just wanted to introduce the concept of the 30-day map challenge, which is currently going on this month. Now, I'm no kind of expert on this, and I believe the inventor of this challenge is actually at the conference, but I have yet to speak to him, but hopefully I will. But I just thought I'd promote it because it's an interesting thing to see. It's a sort of 30-day challenge where you try and make a map every day, usually in the month of November, and each day has a theme, and you can make and you can see the sort of themes there. For this year, it's been going on for several years. It's also a hashtag, so if you're on various social media, you can search for the 30-day map challenge hashtag and have a look. I guess my question is, has anyone put your hand up if you've heard of the 30-day map challenge? Well, I think my job's probably done then. But what I would like to say is, who's participated in the 30-day map challenge? We've got a couple. I would say it's a really interesting thing to try. You don't have to do the 30 days if you don't want to. Even just doing one day is an interesting exercise, just to see how kind of quickly you can make a map based on a theme. And it's kind of a good challenge and kind of gets you going. I guess you can do it in multiple ways. You can use GIS software. You can make a paper map. You can knit. You can make a 3D printed map. But a lot of people use some type of GIS software. I haven't really done it much this year, but this is my attempt a few years ago, and I used this R language, which is a way you can make maps if you particularly want to. But I just sort of what I really want to do is have stuff which is reproducible, so other people can kind of make that map too and maybe tweak it. So I've kind of got this on GitHub, so other people can kind of download it. And you can see it's fairly basic, just pulling data from OpenStreetMap and making a series of maps based on different themes. A lot of them revolve around Scotland and Glasgow and cycling, because that's kind of what I'm interested in. But yeah, all sorts of stuff there. And I'll just show you I was going to show you sort of the hashtags. So this is currently what's sort of, at least on Mastodon, you can see the sort of maps. Some amazingly high quality ones. I don't know how people managed to do it so quickly. But it was a little bit blank. Sorry, it's Wi-Fi. But yeah, what I would do is encourage you to give it a shot. Make one map, see how it goes, because I know a lot of people contribute to the map or use maps, but it is fun and challenging to make a map. So thank you very much. That's my little lightning talk.
All right, okay, I'm up next just to tell you about another one of my tools that maybe isn't as well known. It's something I put together originally because I wanted to have a piece of paper that I could take with me when I'm looking at a high street to see which shops have changed, because I found it was a bit fiddly looking at a phone and various apps that I tried. Whilst they were good, they didn't quite do what I wanted to do. Here's Dundee, and you'll see I've defined some centre lines on street, basically just sort of by plotting some points and joining them up. And then for each of those streets, this tool turns it into a list of the shops along each side. So there's a bit of download the data from OpenStreetMap using Overpass, do a little bit of mathematics to convert the 2D spatial information into two 1D lists of shops. And then I started playing with the data I got from this and doing various checks on it. So going along here, this is actually quite useful for some sort of desktop cleanup of the data on shops. So even if you don't fancy using it outside, there's lots of useful stuff that it will expose to you that you perhaps don't see when you're just looking at a general map. And I think if you don't see the tagging that you're putting in, you don't realise it's wrong, and hopefully this maybe gives you some motivation to fix things. So missing address tags on things are these grey boxes here. So that's telling me either there's a missing street name or a missing locality, city, whatever, that you'd expect to be there. House numbers, so these are listed down here. So there's not that many on here, but if you've got more, you'll quickly spot one that's out of place or one that's missing, and maybe you can find some source that will enable you to add it, or just do it by interpolation if you've got a nice run of even numbers and there's one missing. Postcodes, kind of a UK-centric thing. So you can't really see on the screen here, but these little circles next to each one are the last 2 letters in the postcode, and they're coloured in according to what those letters are. So you can see if you've got a nice run of all the postcodes being the same, and then there's one out in the middle. Maybe that's wrong, and you want to see if you can check it. Names of shops are displayed. If there's a missing name on something where you'd expect one, there's a nice red box to warn you, so maybe you can try and fill that in. Shop types in the brackets, and again, if there's something where there's a shop equals yes or some other value that you might want to provide more detail from, it will highlight that for you. Food hygiene ratings, so in the UK there's a register of any outlets that are selling food, so you'd expect them to have a food hygiene rating, and somewhere there's an example. So if it's a box with an F in if it exists, and it's highlighted in orange if it looks like it's a food type of outlet that doesn't have one. So it encourages you to fill that in. Brand tags, so they're the boxes in with a B. If there's a website that I think belongs to a brand and there's no corresponding brand tag, again, it will flag that up as an error for you. So there's a bold B, because it thinks there should be a brand and there isn't. And websites as well. So there's missing websites, and there's websites with brands where you'd expect to find a website and there isn't one. So it's sort of flagging up all sorts of data issues that you might want to have a look at. So this is all available online. The streets have to be set up manually, but if you're interested in having a street near you set up, then do get in touch with me. If you go to the website, you should be able to find some contact details for me, so let me know and I'll probably set up a street for you and you can have a play. And you can click a button on the website if you'd like the OpenStreetMap data to be refreshed to see if you've managed to improve the data. Okay, so thanks.
Hello again. So although we do cycle routing, Cycle Streets, we actually come from an advocacy background, campaigning, and again, please do take the things away so I don't have to take them home. I'd like to cast your mind back 5 and a bit years when this thing called COVID arrived, and you might have seen these sort of roadblocks, as some people have called them, around, which were basically designed to stop through traffic. Basically back in, I think it was April 2020, the Conservative Transport Minister said, we would like local authorities to reduce traffic and enable people to cycle and improve the roads. You know, it was a kind of a moment in which that was possible maybe to achieve. And so they gave funding for a lot of these things. And of course it generated a degree of backlash to have what should we call a culture war, as it were. I'm someone who actually lives in a street which is a low traffic neighbourhood and has been since 1980. And so I felt that this kind of discussion of these radical new measures was quite odd, because they've been around for decades. So what do I do as a data person? I go out and map things and prove otherwise. So here is a high traffic neighbourhood. You can see there, this is just right outside of school. You can see there's a kid trying to just squeeze through there. Pretty horrible. I mean, why this is still acceptable in this day and age, I do not know. In fact, that has now been changed, but yeah. So we need a new term, high traffic neighbourhoods, or high injury neighbourhoods maybe. This is a low traffic neighbourhood. This is where basically people can drive in and out, but not through. So the difference is that, if you like, most local streets, you know, you can kind of drive through and rat run essentially between main roads. Low traffic neighbourhoods make that impossible through a variety of means. So we have various things, and in fact they're not new. This is the picture from the 1980s. In fact, you can see there's a closure there in Cambridge. Sorry, opening up rather to people cycling. So how are these done? Well, we've got things like these bollards. Again, you can see these are clearly old. They're sort of old-fashioned things, but this stops sort of running through from one end to another. And as a result, the whole neighbourhood is much calmer, and people can still drive in and out, but just not through. You've got things like gates, which do a similar thing. So you can see there are cyclists able to get through. People can obviously walk through, but again, driving through is not possible. We've got gaps of various kinds, a very similar sort of thing. We've got planters, as I showed. You can see that people objected to this, but they have come along, and some kids have put nice things saying, we love our low traffic neighbourhoods, and so on. So, I mean, that in a nutshell is the kind of culture war issue debate going on here. There's also these sorts of things where you have cycleway filters, where people are, traffic is only allowed to exit, but can't go in. But you can see there's a cycle exemption, except cycles. So that's another kind of traffic filter that stops driving through an area. And we've got things like bus gates as well, where only buses and cycles can go through, and obviously pedestrians. And we've also got what we call continuations, which is we have a main road, such as the one left to right, but it's been sort of cut off, in this case by some nice little artistic boats or something. But again, the effect of this is that you can't drive through the area, but you can still access it via another means. So we set out to map where these are. So firstly, where are modal filters, and also which streets are through streets. So modal filters are the actual blockages themselves, but they're only a means to an end. The actual through streets is what we care about. So on OpenStreetMap, often a modal filter is represented like this. Can you see at the top there? There's a little bit of a blue dash which represents the cycleway. But it's essentially like a little filament. It's like a little old-fashioned filament bulb. You've got the two kind of residential streets and then a little bit between them. And essentially this is a pattern that we can spot. So as programmers, we've got a massive database in SQL of it, and so you can see just about above there's a sort of simplified diagram, and essentially these nodes and ways that connect to each other we can represent in SQL. So for example, the fact that you've got a main road, there's a one-way street coming into it at the node, and at that same node, there's a cycleway going the opposite direction. So for each of these types of barriers, these scenarios, we've got an SQL query that spots these, and as a result, we get a modal filters chart. We think it's about 90% accurate, but we found there's about 25,000 of these around the UK, and The Guardian, in fact, covered this. So it really dispels the idea that these are sort of new or radical in any way. So then we said, well, what's the effect of these? And the effect of these is low traffic neighbourhoods. Now, LTNs, actually, there's lots of different types. If you think about the sort of 1970s no ball games type estates, they're ones you can drive in and drive out, but not through. Cul-de-sacs, they're low traffic neighbourhoods. Obviously, the new types, you've got things like the Barratt Home sprawl estates that you see constantly around the countryside. They are ones where you drive in off the main road, and then essentially you can't drive through. You can just access. So LTNs, you know, the whole range of these make them the norm. So how have we done this? We've basically segmented areas by the main roads, you can see there, and then we've combined lots of small ways together to make a single point. So we end up with these polygons. And then we, as a cycling routing organisation, what did we do? Well, we built a car routing engine, and we looked at all the combinatorial ways through from one main road to another. So this, for example, is from the main road to itself, so that doesn't count. It's got to be from one of them to another, so from A to B, and then you've got all the combinations. Now in this area, there's very few, there's only actually that one there. All of these are actually stopped by a modal filter in the middle. And one of the interesting things about this kind of analysis is that a well-placed modal filter, the actual block, can have network effects much wider. It's a case of strategically putting them in the right place. But if you look at a map of where they are, you don't realise that one, for example, in the middle of this map, actually affects roads quite a long way off. So we did that, and essentially we've ended up with so you can see there, this shows the blue shows going through, and so on the right we've turned that into red, which shows where you can theoretically drive through or likely to. There's brown, which is that plus traffic calming, and the rest are blue, which means that essentially they're low traffic neighbourhoods. So we've generated a UK-wide map of the UK map, lowtrafficneighbourhoods.org, nice and easy to remember, and we then turn that into statistics by area, so by local ward, because it's a sort of by councillor, in other words, by city, town, and also by highway authority. And so we've got a map, and so it comes up with interesting things. For example, it shows that in London, the majority of local streets are in fact low traffic neighbourhoods. So rather than this assumption that there are there are 100 new modal filters put in during the pandemic, but in fact, half the streets are already LTNs anyway. There's one of the common things, I think I've got a minute over, just about to finish, last slide. One of the common accusations is that these are tools for posh people to basically get rid of traffic. In other words, therefore high income areas. And actually, if you look at, for example, Cambridge, which is an area of extreme inequality, you'll find that one of the place with the most highest deprivation has actually got the very highest levels of low traffic neighbourhoods, and that's because it's mainly council estates which were never designed to have through traffic. So we hope this data is helpful. Say it's UK-wide. There's an online map at lowtrafficneighbours.org. There's an API you can use the data. We do commercially supply GIS downloads and the stats by area, and we think this proves they're widespread. We think it backs up infrastructure advocacy work that campaigners are doing. We think it will be useful for evidence to link to social demographic data that researchers might be doing. And also, we'd like to use it in cycle routing because obviously roads with cars going through are different to ones that don't. So thank you very much.